Are we about to witness the most underrated bidding war of the summer? And could Marco Rossi be the catalyst that transforms either Montreal or Vancouver into legitimate playoff contenders? The Austrian center's contract situation with Minnesota has created a fascinating scenario that could reshape the competitive landscape in both conferences. And the stakes couldn't be higher for two Canadian franchises desperate to prove they're ready for the next level. David Pagnotta's latest intel has set the hockey world ablaze with possibilities. The fourth period insider has identified both the Canadiens and Canucks as serious contenders for Rossi's services. And Minnesota's eagerness to move him suggests we're looking at a seller's market with potentially explosive consequences. A team actively shops a 23-year-old coming off a 60-point season. You know, there's more to this story than simple salary cap management. The financial dynamics driving this situation are absolutely fascinating and reveal
Just how dramatically?
the NHL landscape has shifted. Rossi is reportedly seeking a deal in the $45 to $50 million range, which would represent a massive leap from his entry-level contract. For Minnesota, that number apparently crosses their comfort threshold, creating an opportunity that both Montreal and Vancouver are salivating over. Bill Grang receiving multiple calls about Rossi tells us everything we need to know about how the league views his potential impact. Let's break down why this becomes such a compelling target for Montreal. Specifically, the Canadiens have been searching for that elusive second-line center for what feels like an eternity. And Rossi's skill set aligns perfectly with their organizational needs. His breakout campaign wasn't just about raw numbers, it was about demonstrating the kind of two-way reliability that championship teams require from their middle six forwards. 24 goals and 36 assists represent genuine offensive upside, while his improved face-off percentage and defensive metrics suggest a player who's evolved into a complete package. The power play production adds another layer of intrigue too. Rossi's appeal. 7 power play goals and 9 assists indicate a player who can contribute in crucial situations. Exactly the kind of specialty skills that separate good teams from great ones. Montreal's power play has shown flashes of brilliance, but lacks that consistent catalyst who can make opponents pay for their mistakes. Rossi could be that missing piece, particularly if paired with talent like Ivan Demidov or Cole Caulfield. Vancouver's interest tells its own compelling story about their organizational priorities. The Canucks have established themselves as playoff contenders, but recognize they need additional depth to sustain success over a full season. Rossi would provide them with the kind of versatility that allows coaches to deploy different line combinations without sacrificing offensive capability. His ability to play both center and wing creates lineup flexibility that could prove invaluable during the rigorous Western Conference. Play of battles. The timing of this potential movement couldn't be more critical for all parties involved. Rossi is entering his prime years, where players typically take significant steps forward in their development. His 60-point campaign might just be scratching the surface of his offensive potential, which makes the contract demands more understandable. From his perspective, teams acquiring him wouldn't just be getting current production, they'd be betting on continued growth and improvement. Minnesota's willingness to part with Rossi despite his breakout season raises fascinating questions about their salary cap strategy and organizational priorities. The Wild have shown they're comfortable making difficult decisions when financial realities conflict with player development. And this situation appears to be following that same pattern. Their loss could become a tremendous gain for whichever team successfully navigates the trade negotiations. The Austrian connection adds an interesting international dimension to Rossi's value proposition. European players often bring different perspectives and skill sets that can complement North American development systems. His hockey IQ and playmaking ability reflect the kind of cerebral approach that translates well to playoff hockey, where game slowdown and decision-making becomes paramount. Teams acquiring international talent often find unexpected chemistry combinations that wouldn't be obvious on paper. From Montreal's strategic standpoint, pursuing Rossi represents exactly the kind of calculated aggression their rebuild timeline demands. They've accumulated assets and prospects for years, and now they're reaching the point where converting some of that potential into proven production makes sense. Rossi's age profile aligns perfectly with their core group, creating the opportunity for sustained success rather than just tear-term improvement. The competitive implications extend far beyond just adding another skilled forward. Whichever team lands Rossi immediately improves their depth chart, potentially creating a domino effect throughout their lineup. Better depth means more favorable matchups, reduced pressure on top lines, and the kind of four-line capability That becomes crucial during playoff runs. These secondary effects often prove more valuable than the individual acquisition itself. Vancouver's perspective reveals their confidence in their current trajectory and willingness to invest in maintaining momentum. The Canucks have worked hard to establish themselves as a legitimate playoff team, and they understand that standing still often means moving backward in today's competitive environment. Adding Rossi would signal their commitment to building on recent success rather than simply hoping to maintain it. The financial commitment required for Rossi also represents a statement about organizational priorities. Teams willing to invest $45 to $50 million are essentially declaring their belief in his ability to drive results over the contract duration. That level of investment demands corresponding production, creating pressure that either elevates players or exposes their limitations. Rossi's track record suggests he's more likely to thrive under that pressure than crumble beneath it. The bidding war dynamic creates leverage for Minnesota that Guentzel will undoubtedly exploit to maximize return value. Multiple interested parties typically drive up acquisition costs, meaning Montreal and Vancouver might need to significantly overpay to secure Rossi's services. The question becomes whether either organization views him as essential enough to their success to justify premium pricing. Consider the alternative scenarios if this deal doesn't materialize for either Canadian team. Montreal would continue searching for center depth through other avenues, potentially settling for less optimal solutions. Vancouver might miss an opportunity to add the kind of depth that could make the difference between first-round exits and deeper playoff runs. The cost of inaction could exceed the price of acquisition. The development curve for young centers often includes dramatic jumps between ages 23 and 26, suggesting Rossi's best seasons might still be ahead of him. Teams acquiring him now would be buying into that upside while potentially getting several years of prime production. That combination of present ability and future potential makes him an incredibly attractive target for teams in different phases of their competitive cycles. This situation perfectly illustrates the challenges facing Canadian teams trying to build sustainable success in today's NHL. The combination of media pressure, fan expectations, and organizational impatience creates urgency that sometimes leads to overpayment for available talent. Whether Rossi represents smart investment or expensive mistake will depend entirely on execution and results. The international implications of this potential move shouldn't be overlooked either. Austrian hockey continues developing talented players, and Rossi's success could pave the way for increased scouting and development relationships. Teams making smart international acquisitions often build pipelines that provide long-term competitive advantages beyond just individual transactions. Which team do you think has the better package to offer Minnesota for Rossi's services? Should Montreal go all-in to finally solve their center problem? Or would Vancouver be the smarter landing spot for his continued development? Drop your predictions in the comments and let me know what you think this bidding war might ultimately cost the winning team. And if you're enjoying this breakdown of the summer's most intriguing trade scenarios, smash that like button to help more hockey fans stay informed about all the moves shaping next season. Are the Montreal Canadiens about to make the most controversial trade decision of their rebuild? Swapping their beloved enforcer for a former 4th overall pick who's been labeled a draft bust? The proposed deal sending Arbor Shekai to Seattle for Shane Wright has ignited passionate debates across the hockey world. The implications could define both franchises for years to come. This isn't just another routine trade proposal. It's a philosophical statement about what modern NHL teams truly value. On one side, you have Shekai, the undrafted heavyweight who's captured hearts with his old-school toughness and unwavering loyalty to his teammates. On the other, there's Wright, the supremely talented center whose draft night fall from projected first overall to 4th selection created a narrative of disappointment that's followed him ever since. The contrast couldn't be more stark, neither could the potential consequences. Wright's journey to this point reads like a cautionary tale about expectations and development timelines in professional hockey. Remember the shock when his name wasn't called first, second, or even third in that 2022 draft? Experts had him pegged as the obvious top choice, yet he watched helplessly as other prospects heard their names before his. That kind of rejection can either fuel a player's determination or create lasting psychological scars. Wright's subsequent struggles suggest the mental aspect of his game took a significant hit. The numbers from his first full NHL season tell a story of gradual progress rather than explosive breakthrough. 19 goals and 44 points represent solid production for a young center, but but they fall short of the elite offensive output many expected from a player with his pedigree. Seattle's development system clearly hasn't unlocked his full potential, creating an opportunity for Montreal to buy low on what could still become a premium asset. From Montreal's perspective, this trade represents the kind of calculated risk that defines successful rebuilds. They've identified a specific need: top six center depth, and they're willing to part with a fan favorite to address it. Now, that takes courage and conviction, especially when the player you're trading away has become such an integral part of the team's identity. Shaka isn't just a hockey player in Montreal. He's a symbol of the grittiness and determination this organization wants to embody. The defensive depth situation makes this deal even more intriguing from Montreal's strategic standpoint. With Noah Dobson, Mike Matheson, Lane Hudson, Kaiden Guhle, and Alexander Carrier already manning key roles, Shekai faces an uphill battle for consistent ice time. Brian Wild's assessment that he'd be competing with Jaden Struble for the final defensive spot highlights just how crowded Montreal's blue line has become. Sometimes the best assets are the ones you can afford to trade. Wild's comments about needing a first-round pick equivalent for Shekai reveal how highly the organization values his unique skill set. His statement that the Canadiens adore Shekai, but would consider moving him for the right price, perfectly captures the tension between emotional attachment and business necessity. Wright's draft pedigree and age profile could represent exactly that kind of equivalent value, especially if Montreal believes they can succeed where Seattle has struggled. The enforcer role in today's NHL creates fascinating debates about relevance and necessity. Shekai brings something you simply cannot teach or develop: the ability to change game dynamics through physical presence and intimidation. His consistent sub-2-minute ice time might suggest limited impact, but his influence extends far beyond traditional statistics. Opponents think twice about taking liberties with Montreal's skilled players when they know Shekai is watching from the bench. Seattle's motivation in this hypothetical deal speaks to their own roster construction challenges. The Kraken have invested heavily in skill and speed, but they lack the physical element that can prove crucial during playoff battles. Adding Shekai would instantly transform their team identity while addressing a glaring weakness in their defensive depth. Sometimes the best trades involve exchanging strengths to address weaknesses rather than simply acquiring similar assets. Wright's development curve suggests he's approaching a critical juncture in his career trajectory. Tent, either about to break through to the next level or risk being permanently labeled as a disappointment relative to his draft position. A change of scenery could provide exactly the catalyst he needs, particularly joining an organization known for patient player development and strong veteran leadership. The psychological aspects of this potential trade cannot be understated for either player involved. Wright would be leaving a situation where expectations have felt overwhelming and joining a rebuilding team where he could develop without crushing pressure. Shekai would be moving from beloved hometown hero status to proving himself in a new market, which could either motivate him to new heights or expose limitations that Montreal's passionate fan base helped mask. Montreal's center depth chart makes Wright's potential fit even more compelling. He wouldn't be thrust into an immediate top-line role, allowing for gradual integration and development without overwhelming responsibility. The Canadiens have shown remarkable patience with prospects, and that approach could unlock the potential that made Wright such a coveted prospect in junior hockey. The financial considerations add another layer of complexity to this evaluation. Both players are on entry-level or early career contracts, making the trade primarily about potential rather than immediate salary cap implications. That allows both organizations to focus on hockey fit rather than financial gymnastics, creating cleaner evaluation criteria for success or failure. Seattle's development track record with young forwards provides context for their struggles with Right. The Kraken are still learning how to optimize their development systems. Their approach might not align with Wright's specific needs as a player. Montreal's more established development infrastructure could provide the structure and support necessary for him to reach his ceiling. The ripple effects throughout both lineups would be immediate and significant. Montreal would gain center depth, while losing defensive grit, potentially requiring adjustments to their overall team identity. Seattle would address toughness concerns while creating additional questions about center depth, forcing both teams to adapt their playing styles accordingly. Fan reaction to this potential trade would likely split along generational lines, with older supporters appreciating Shekai's throwback style while younger fans focus on Wright's skill potential. Managing those competing perspectives requires careful communication from both organizations about their long-term vision and priorities. The timing of such a move would be crucial for both players' development trajectories, right? Needs consistent opportunity and confidence-building situations. While Shakai requires an environment where his physical style is valued and utilized effectively, both players could benefit from fresh starts, but only if their new situations provide better fits for their respective skill sets. This trade proposal perfectly encapsulates the modern NHL's tension between traditional hockey values and evolving strategic priorities. Teams must balance emotional connections with analytical evaluation, fan preferences with organizational needs, and present comfort with future potential. The Shakai swap represents all of these competing considerations in one fascinating package. Whether this specific deal materializes or not, it highlights the difficult decisions facing both organizations as they pursue their championship aspirations. Montreal needs offensive depth, Seattle needs defensive grit, and both players need fresh opportunities to prove their worth at the NHL level. What's your take on this potential blockbuster swap? Would you trade away Montreal's enforcer for rights, untapped potential, or is Shakai too valuable to the team's identity to consider moving? Let me know in the comments what you think about this fascinating clash between old-school hockey values and modern development philosophy. Don't forget to hit that like button if you want more analysis of the trades that could reshape both conferences.